Hey guys, this is Madman Mars 2000 here, and I'm just here posting this video because last night it finally happened. You know, we got the Monday Night War all over again. You know, WWE, they went head-to-head with TNA, and I'm just giving out my personal thoughts on the Monday Night War and who I personally thought won the war, and all in all, I'm just giving you my basic thoughts on the whole Monday Night War, how it turned out, and my opinion on who I think personally won this war. So basically, as far as WWE goes, really all they had to rely on was Bret the Hitman Hart, which is awesome. I mean, seeing Bret Hart coming back after 12 years after the screw job and finally confronting, you know, his demons, meaning like Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon, was amazing to see that. And, you know, seeing Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels face to face after 12 years of the Montreal screw job, you know, behind them, it really gave me goosebumps. I mean, my buddies and I were watching this, and we were just stuck to the TV. We were in awe of seeing Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart 12 years after the screw job finally face to face with one another. It was just so amazing to see this, and you know, to see Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, you know, extend the hand and shake hands and, you know, say, you know, we're gonna put all this behind us, was really good to see. So, you know, now they don't have those demons anymore in their past, and they can move forward, and, you know, it was definitely good to see that. And basically all the Bret Hart segments on Raw as a whole were just amazing. Just Bret coming back was amazing. You know, seeing Vince McMahon and Bret Hart teasing that they were going to make up in the end, only to have Vince McMahon low blow Bret Hart to set up their feud going into what's mostly going to be WrestleMania. From what I understand, Bret Hart's supposed to make his in-ring return at WrestleMania for one match only, to face Vince McMahon. So that was amazing to see, you know, to have it look like, you know, they were going to finally patch things up, and then Vince turns on Bret and low blows him, and, you know, that sets up the feud going into WrestleMania. It was just amazing to see that. And basically, aside from that, though, also not having John Cena on Raw, not everyone would agree was a good idea, but for me personally, I thought having John Cena off Raw for this one time only was great, because, you know, finally for one show only, if it was only going to be for one show, at least John Cena was completely 100% out of the spotlight, and that's something that really needed to happen, since WWE is just simply so high on him, and he's always in the spotlight. And, you know, this one time it was just all about Bret Hart and his spotlight, and, you know, John Cena stayed out of it, and he wasn't on the show. It was just really good to see that. And, you know, you might not all agree with me, because I know that, you know, there are a lot of John Cena fans out there, and I'm not a John Cena hater myself. I'm kind of on the fence. Like, with John Cena, I liked him a lot better in his Word Life era. I don't really care for him much now in his, you know, Marine era, or whatever you choose to call it. But I don't know, it was great for me to not have John Cena on Raw, and to stay completely out of the spotlight this just once. And so those for me were the positives on Raw. The negatives were, all in all, you know, aside from the Bret Hart segments, Raw was your average basic run-of-the-mill show, with your basic average run-of-the-mill matches that you really didn't care to see. And, you know, it's just that's to me what it amounts to, is that had it not been for Bret Hart being there, which was all WWE had to rely on going into this Monday Night War, you know, it wouldn't have been a good show at all. And aside from the Bret Hart segments, it was just your basic, you know, average run-of-the-mill Raw. So now going into TNA, I mean, what can you say? TNA was nostalgia heaven last night, guys. It was just so nostalgic. Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff, syxx-pac, I mean, Scott Hall, the Nasty Boys, even Val Venus was there, and he was actually keeping in with his ladies' man character. He was actually backstage playing strip poker with the beautiful people, so again, they kept him in his ladies' man character still. I mean, you had Shannon Moore there, the shocking return of Jeff Hardy to TNA. He was there, and he attacked Homicide during the Steel Asylum match. And, you know, for me, there really weren't too many negatives for TNA, except for a lot was focused on, for TNA, the backstage segments. as opposed to actually wrestling. There were some good matches on the show, but a lot of the in-between were all just backstage segments with the Nasty Boys, and Ric Flair was there too, and you saw him walking backstage, and that's what I mean. It was just a huge piece of nostalgia heaven going into for the Monday Night Wars for TNA this time around. And for me, the huge plus sides for TNA were, Jeff Jarrett coming out and saying, oh, with me, Hulk Hogan, Dixie Carter running this company, this company's going to thrive more than ever. And then Hulk Hogan came on the Titantron, or the big screen, whatever you want to call it, and pretty much told Jeff Jarrett, he can quit spewing his crap, and that, Jeff Jarrett's going to have to earn his stripes just like everyone else in this company, and he can talk all the shit that he wants, but in the end, Hulk Hogan doesn't buy all his bullshit, and that Jeff Jarrett's going to have to get in line just like the rest of the roster and earn his stripes. And then Hulk Hogan started chewing out Jeff Jarrett, saying, you might have founded TNA, but you're also the one who ran it into the ground, and, you made yourself look big, when you were wrestling with all the title runs that you gave yourself and all that. I mean, Hulk Hogan didn't really come out and say that. He pretty much just implied it by saying that Jeff Jarrett might have founded TNA, but he also ran it to the ground. Also, the Hulk Hogan coming out, and then, Hall and syxx-pac coming out from the crowd and talking to Hulk Hogan, and then Eric Bischoff coming out and having the whole, pretty much the whole NWO original reunion in the ring was sweet. The NWO remix theme for Hulk Hogan was sweet. The whole scenes where Hogan had this huge entourage of police cars and police bikes, following his limo just to show how big he was awesome. And the whole Hogan Jarrett segment thing put a huge smile on my face that I couldn't remove. The whole Mick Foley at the end of Impact getting attacked by the NWO, he was actually backstage, Mick Foley, at the end of the show looking for Hogan, and he ran into Bischoff, and he was about to punch out Bischoff, and then syxx-pac, Nash, and Scott Hall ran in and beat the hell out of him, and then at the very end of the show, Hulk Hogan walked back into his office and pretty much had this unsure look on his face, as if he didn't know whether to approve of what just happened or whether to, go against what happened. But, that was really good to see whether Hogan's going to side with the NWO or whether he's, going to scold them for what they did. They really didn't make that clear. The match of the night, bar none, was definitely AJ Styles and Angle for the title. It was just an amazing, amazing match, and it was just so good to see that match. And and that's what I'm talking about TNA going into this war almost had no negatives at all, whereas WWE had tons of negatives, because the only thing they had to rely on was Bret Hart. And whereas TNA had so much more star power going for them with all the return, Jeff Hardy and Val Venus and Ric Flair and the Nasty Boys, and the return of the NWO, Scott Hall and syxx-pac, and it's just an amazing show. I loved it. And to me, in the end, the winner of this war, and I'm not going by the ratings, I'm going by my personal opinion, TNA, they won. They delivered bigger than WWE, I thought. I was so much more into TNA last night, and like I said, the only huge things I was into for Raw were the Bret Hart segments, and I was pretty much turning the channel for everything else to go back to TNA. And to me, TNA, they did it. They delivered. They went all out, and they're the winners, guys. They won the war to me. So anyway, guys, that's it. Those are my thoughts on the TNA versus WWE Monday Night War that took place last night. And that's it, guys. I'm Madman Mars 2000.